Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. Enemies of the people. Enemies of the people. It's quite an emotive phrase, isn't it? There are a few people around the world at the moment that are using that phrase and others like it to achieve certain aims. Or to attempt to anyway. Elon's money probably helps. I tell you what I did notice while doing a bit of research for this video. It's usually the person or company or entity that is shouting the loudest about enemies of the people. That is the biggest threat to the average man in the street. It's been used by all the most repugnant and insidious ideologies throughout history, not least a certain Austrian painter with a funny moustache. And it continues to be used today by Nigel Farage and Donald Trump and Tommy Robinson and Vladimir Putin and others like them. And it was certainly used to the fullest extent by the Tory party and Boris Johnson in particular. But we kind of expect these people and institutions to be dishonest. The people of the UK knew full well that Boris Johnson was extremely dishonest and had a long history of deceit and deception, and yet they made him Prime Minister anyway. They did that because the media told them to. There are enemies of the people. And they write most of the headlines that millions of people read in the morning. Let's have a little talk about that right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone who reads the newspaper headlines is stupid, not for a minute. We all absorb news in one way or another. And I do see headlines, although I deliberately don't look at the headlines of the main tabloids, unless there's been a particular event and I want to see how they're going about reporting it. Or occasionally when I go to the websites of the main culprits for research purposes. But I make a point of never giving them my money. Stick your 1 year subscription up your arse, Telegraph, and no Daily Express. I do not want to receive notifications. Fuck right off. The Daily Express is a good place to start, actually. Despite the untimely death of Princess Diana being allegedly caused in part by pursuing paparazzi, the Daily Express noticed something that piqued their interests in the late 90s, just after the death of Princess Diana. They noticed that if they can somehow, some way, come up with a reason to mention Princess Diana, or preferably put her on the front page, they sell a hell of a lot more newspapers. This has led to them becoming something of a joke in recent years, as it's become increasingly clear that they will print any old bullshit bollocks or bile that they can find about Princess Diana, even going so far as to ignore some major world events just to have a front page headline about her because they found something that might possibly have happened that just might have maybe had something to do with somebody there was a rumour that she was involved with in 1985. You see, those gaudy pamphlets of giant letters, startling pictures, and the opinions of twats presented as fact that you see on the newsagent shelves have only one real purpose, and it's to generate profit. The newspapers on the shelves certainly don't exist to inform you of anything, and they have no obligation to do so. If they could sell you 40 sheets of cheap blank paper and a pencil for a price that they could make a profit on, the majority of them would gladly do so if they thought they could get away with it. Then you could make up your own news instead of them making it up for you, couldn't you? The world would probably be a better place. The UK would anyway. Despite supposedly being a civilised nation and the mother of all democracies, the UK ranks just 23rd on the World Press Freedom Index. Samoa, East Timor and Latvia rank higher than we do, along with, of course, most countries within the EU. I think this is because the press has been allowed to repeatedly get away with pretty much saying anything it likes. In the mid-80s, the Sun decided to print a full page full of lies about the Hillsborough disaster because they don't like Scousers down there and they support Thatcher. In more recent times, the Daily Mail, in support of Boris Johnson, decided to print a full front page calling all the most celebrated and learned judges in the land the aforementioned enemies of the people, because they wouldn't let him break the law and lie to the people to achieve a hard Brexit. But where I believe the real insidious nature of the British press comes into play is in its treatment of those it doesn't wish to see succeed, and its seemingly free rein to print absolutely whatever it feels like about them. It was the Daily Mail that coined the term Red Ed for Ed Miliband when he was the leader of the opposition in 2014, and I certainly don't think making up names for politicians should be outlawed. I've come up with a few names for Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris fucking Johnson that even the Daily Mail wouldn't print, and I'm sure you all know what I call Matt Hancock by now. But what the Daily Mail decided to do was take things a little bit further in their attempt to make their more dull-witted readers actually think that Ed Miliband was a Marxist threat and would definitely be more dangerous than allowing another 10 years of the dastardly bastard Tories and all the misery they brought. So what they did was, they paid somebody to relentlessly dig into Ed Miliband's past and his family history until they found one comment about socialism that his father, who served in the Royal Navy during World War II, had written in a diary when he was just 17 years old. The next day, they printed a full page calling Ed Miliband's father, who had died in 1994 and couldn't even defend himself, the man who hated Britain. If you think that is decent, morally just, insightful and intelligent journalism, then I'm going to suspect that you might just have voted for the Tories in 2010, then voted for Brexit, then believed Boris Johnson was going to get Brexit done, and quite likely decided Nigel Farage should be the king because of how good friends he is with Donald Trump recently, and started voting Reform. I think you're on the wrong channel, mate. Do us a favour and piss off. Jacob Grease-Bog is probably on GBB's at some point today. And so we come to the present day where, more recently, the media decided that it was Jeremy Corbin who should be openly roasted over the flames of public excoriation, and made up stories about him endlessly, relentlessly for years. Despite the fact that the Hansard report clearly shows that what Jeremy Corbyn has mostly been doing over the last 40 years has been repeatedly voting against things the Tories tried to inflict on us. And despite the fact that as a long-serving Member of Parliament, his movements are quite well publicised, they decided to pretend he was a Marxist, a Trotskyist, a friend to jihadis, an IRA sympathiser, the worst kind of socialist, a threat to British security, against us having any sort of armed forces, despite him never saying anything of the sort, a communist, a Czechoslovakian spy, a Russian stooge, an absolute bastard on every level, and eventually an anti-Semite. Only admittedly found enough dirt to make that one stick, and his public humiliation was complete, wasn't it? But let's be honest, the man could have been Jesus himself, with a promise to manifest a golden egg-laying goose for every family in the country, and they still would have made sure he never won an election. But there's one lie that a few of the papers and the media are perpetrating just today that I spotted, and it was the thing that set me off on the tangent that ended in me recording this video. It's the report showing the most evil-looking picture that they can find of Rachel Reeves, and report along with it that she's only going to raise benefits by £1.50 a week. Well, There are a few ways to come at this. One, she hasn't said that. She hasn't said anything of the sort. If you actually read the articles, they haven't got any kind of quote from her. They don't even seem to have asked her about this. And they certainly haven't got any message or speech or tweet or any sort of real indication that that's actually what her intention is. And they've no solid evidence whatsoever to base their claim on. You know, that's not important, that though, is it? Thing is, they know a whole lot of people won't read the article, don't they? A whole lot of the type of people they're targeting with that ad probably aren't capable of reading it, are they? Another issue is where they've got this number from, this £1.50. It's based on the fact that the increase in benefits yearly is tied to the inflation rate in September. But they don't mention that fact either. And I'll tell you what else they don't mention, that it's not some sort of law or statutory device that is written in stone. Labour don't have to abide by it and haven't said that they're going to. They can raise benefits by as much as they want, regardless of what the inflation rate is in September. It's just a guide. Lastly, possibly the most piss-takingly arrogant and disgustingly hypocritical part of this is the Tories were in office for 14 years. Every year prices increased. Every year the cost of living increased until the last few years it rocketed. And for some, lucky few, wages increased, but not everybody. Well, people on benefits were always left in every one of those years waiting to see if benefits would increase in line with inflation, or if the Tory government was basically going to get away with another stealth cut in benefits by finding some way around it. How many years do you think the Tories raised benefits in line with inflation in them 14 years? Well, it's actually quite difficult to find an exact number because the Tories deliberately keep changing the definitions of it all throughout their term in office. But my research suggests that for 10 of those years, they found some way to avoid increasing benefits in line with inflation, despite always saying that they were going to. They only began to do so in the last few years of them being in office. I wonder why that was, eh? It's convenient, isn't it? Tell you what you will find, easily though, the voting records of every single Tory that voted against keeping the promise to raise benefits in line with inflation. And believe me, there aren't many that didn't. I don't remember the papers reporting that very much, do you? Do you remember a front page headline with a picture of George Osborne looking evil and the words, "Tories cut benefits by stealth," splashed across it? Me neither. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I hope I haven't rambled too much, and I hope I've made me point about who the real enemies of the people actually are. Let's make a little prediction, shall we? I'm not a massive fan of Rachel Reeves so far. I know that she's no Tory though, and for those that say that she is, I'd simply refer them to her voting record where it's well documented that she voted against every stupid fiscal measure that the Tories tried to blag, bumble and buffoon their way into law for the whole time she's been in office. If she was a Tory, she'd have lost the whip years ago, so don't at me with the "she's a red Tory" thing, because she clearly isn't. I do predict that benefits will rise by more than £1.50 in April of 2025. She might not be very media savvy, obviously, but she's not a fucking idiot. And I'm pretty sure even she knows that £1.50 can't even buy her a 4 pint of milk from the newsagents these days. It will be more than £1.50 a week. And I guarantee that there will be newspaper headlines about it being money that is being given to feckless scroungers or people pretending to be disabled at the time. You watch. Have you ever looked at the comment sections of those kind of stories if you read them online? I think I might have just given myself an idea for a future video there. But anyway, I've banged on about the likes and subscribe thing already, so I won't do that again. But if you want to support the channel, there are all the usual links to PayPal and Patreon, and you can make a one-off donation in the Buy Me a Coffee page in the descriptions box. And there is, of course, the join button for memberships. Quick shout out to Serena Del Mar, who is a follower on Patreon and sent a lovely message when she first joined. Cheers, mate. Now, obviously, I haven't got as much to say as the right-wing Tory rags do every day. But that is as much of what I've got to say as I'm reporting today. Ta-ra-la. More recently, the media decided that Jeremy Corbin deserved to be openly roasted over the flames of public. I invented a new word, Dan. Don't care, do you? Can't speak English. Never mind.